Poppins, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
How you doing?
Good. Thank you.
Let's just jump right in and go back to the beginning of this journey in music for you. What's your earliest memory of music that you have
Wow.
that you can think of?
Well, I started as a classical violin player when I was 3 years old. Piano too, maybe when I was about 7 or 8. And then I went to school for classical violin performance. One thing led to another, and I just continued with that.
For those listening who don't know you as well as I do, how did you start navigating music professionally as a DJ, as a producer? What was that journey like?
So I ended up moving to Miami for a couple of reasons. And once I was in Miami, I was very influenced by the dance scene, all the music that was happening, the nightclub scene, nightlife. And so my desires were starting to change with the kind of music I liked. And I wanted to make, at that time, dance music for the violin because that's just what I knew. I was just trying to find producers at that time that could kind of combine both worlds between classical world and pop, dance, EDM world. And so that's kind of where that started and where that sparked.
Is that when you met Jimmy Douglas?
Yes. So I was looking for a producer. Long story short, I ended up going to a conference. I met someone that he worked with at the conference. He welcomed me to come over to the studio. So I started coming over to the studio and, telling him what I was trying to do. It was interesting, though, because for him, he works with vocalists and pop artists and hip hop artists. So what I was trying to do was a little bit different than what he could even offer, I should say, at that time,
Is that when you started learning how to produce yourself?
Yes. So again, when I was working with Jimmy, what we started to do, I started to do a lot of string, instrumental parts for a lot of his records that he was working on. So I would come around and do that. As I was doing that, I started creatively making my own productions on the side, not using a DAW, but just, ideas that I had, or I would show him things or play something. And so it also got his interest. And he looked at me and he's like, you actually need to be this person to make this music that you're talking about. I mean, there were a lot of things that happened in between. We tried to find other producers too in the meantime. It just was hard to combine both worlds. And also to backtrack a bit, the first show that I did in Miami was a DJing show. And I had a vision of having other instrumentalists and dancers. It was a big show that I put on. And Jimmy was also very instrumental, helping me do this show. And I needed to change the music. But I couldn't change it because I pre-recorded the set because there was a lot of things that were happening. Like I said, with the dancers and everything. And I remember at that moment when I finished that show, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I need to control the environment, what I'm doing, and this is it. This is what I have to do. So that kind of sparked the DJing side. And when that started, the production side also came with that as well.
I think a lot of people relate to that. Having an experience and being like, oh, okay, if I want this to look like I imagine it to look like, I need to be more involved.
Absolutely.
I need to learn more. I need to up my skills. I need to just be in it a little bit deeper. So that sparked you learning how to DJ.
Yes, 100%. Wow. That's
wow.
I don't even know if you knew that. No, yeah, that's definitely what sparked that moment. And again, Jimmy was very instrumental in helping understand what I needed to do. And he's the one actually who turned me on to Ableton at the time. And it was in Ableton at that time wasn't, I would say, the front runner DAW. But we had also someone that we knew in-house who knew Ableton very well. And he's like, look, you got this. This is what you're doing. You need to go head on. And I remember him asking me one time, he's like, do you really want to do this? I was like, yeah, of course. He's like, no, I'm saying, do you really want to do this? And I knew what now I know what he was saying. At that time, I always worked really hard and everything, but the journey's been great, but interesting and evolving. And so I basically locked myself in a room for years.
That's when I met you.
That's when you met me. Literally locked myself in a room. Even before I came to the studio, I I did that before. I think I had to have some chops before I came here. I was just grinding every day. And that's also how I learned DJing too. I just bought the equipment and just went in and learned myself.
Just for the listeners, when I started interning here at the studio, she would be locked in this room in the back in her headphones, just like producing. She would just every once in a while like take the music out of the phones and go to the monitors, and it would just be like the craziest shit you could hear. And it was incredible, honestly. And I had never seen anybody do what you did with the violin and going to some of your shows, which I want to ask you about. Like, how did you start playing gigs?
Well, luckily for me, I did have a connection. I just worked really hard to be able to play one night. I said just one night. All I need is one night. You don't even need to give me an hour. I just need 15 minutes. But that took a while. That didn't happen overnight.
So that conversation, was it just like, did you just pick up the phone and you were like, today is the day I'm going to call this man? Or was it after lunch?
We were actually supposed to meet for coffee, and I tricked him a little bit, and I had him meet me at the studio, and I had my whole setup, and it was ready to go because I knew if I said, come over to the studio, maybe it wouldn't have happened. So I didn't mind giving up my coffee to show him exactly what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I put together like a 15-minute set, DJing, and then I threw the violin in between it. And then when I was done, he's like, so I don't remember the exact date, but he was like, so how's October 15th or something like that? And I was like, perfect. So that's how that started. I was very fortunate because I did start at an amazing club, but I just knew when I played, I had to like bring it. I just knew it, like if I had 15 minutes at the end of the night, like I had to play like I was, playing the biggest festival of my life, but it was a lot of proving. It was a lot of, sometimes I didn't have, big DJs were playing. So maybe they had like 15 minutes at the end of the night and they would just be like, okay, go, like it was just a lot of me showing up, right, doing what I had to do and doing it well.
Right.
And getting that call back. So that was kind of my journey. A lot of proving, a lot of working hard and just proving. And it was tough because I've been a person too, even growing up, like following a system and working very hard and you feel like you do this step, so then the next step comes, But with this industry, it was a little bit different than that. And I just learned and figured out for myself that the only way I could try to make this work was putting my best foot forward, like each and every time, and also out-proving myself each time. Mm-hmm. So these gigs, even though they might have been 15-minute gigs or, they ended up being 2-hour shows that Poppins shows. But in the beginning, those 15-minute gigs were so important to me because those were those moments. Those were the only moments that I had. Like, I didn't know if I was going to come back,
Right.
So I just had to make sure every time that I played, it meant something. I did put a lot of pressure on myself, but again, I just knew, like, for me at that time, those moments counted. So I just did the best that I could, and that was really the story and the progression of the DJing side.
Now you're not only working on your own music, but you're working on music for other people.
Right.
How has that shift been?
Yeah, that shift has been incredible. I love doing that. I really love projects that I do for myself, but learning how to work with other people has been amazing. Before I went to LA, I first started off making dance music and things for the club. So I was making remixes and things. And again, I was in a fortunate situation where prominent people would come through these doors. And I was making remixes for them. And luckily, I made some remixes for The Weeknd, Justin Timberlake, and CHER. She had a song called The Woman's World. And I thought that would be great for me to do, woman to woman, making the remix. And in fact, that remix was the first remix that I had ever done. And I kind of had my first viral moment. She ended up hearing the remix and loved it and contacted me. Actually, that remix she still uses to this day as the opening song for her tour.
That's so dope.
So it was really cool. But, that moment for me was like, okay, it kind of solidified what I was starting to do, trying to do. And I think from that moment on is, where I just went with this. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. It was an interesting time. It was really cool. And like I said, that was just the time where kind of everything sparked. And a lot went down in a very short amount of time. I mean, still, it took time, but, it was just a very focused time. So I literally spent, as you know, like kind of every waking hour and night, just kind of honing in and trying to do the best I could. And I was fortunate enough to be in an environment where it allowed me to do that. And, also gaining knowledge from the people that would walk into the studio and hearing things and absorbing and the whole thing. So maybe by that, I was able to learn faster or absorb, but just spending that time, I think was crucial actually for that moment. And I just kind of let it go and wherever it went is wherever it took me,
Also, like CHER casually, how did that go down? Did you ever get to talk to CHER?
Yeah, no. She invited me. I met her. She invited me to her show in Miami, and I went backstage, and so no, we spent like an hour together, and maybe like half an hour. It felt like an hour, maybe, but probably like a half an hour. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I just I performed the song when I was DJing, and I put a violin solo in the remix. So that went up online, and then she has amazing fans, and they got a hold of it. And then through, I think, the fans, then she got a hold of it. And then so there were some blog articles, and she's like, who is this, at that time, Miss Poppins, who is this person? And she loved it. So, yeah, and then someone from her team, contacted me, I think, again, I'm not sure, through Twitter, email, or something, I'm not sure. And then they set everything up from that point. So it was really cool.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That's so dope.
Yeah.
Like,
I know, sure. I'm like, okay. Not
Cash,
bad.
like, are you kidding? Iconic.
She was amazing. I mean, she was just amazing. Her whole thing. Like, it's CHER.
It's CHER.
You know?
It's so dope.
That was a cool experience. That was really my first, breakout moment. So from that point on, I started making more remixes, and then it got into, the productions of making songs, and not just dance remixes, but, radio songs. So then when I went to LA, I definitely focused more on the songwriting and the production for other artists rather than just for myself. So no, the transition has been great. To me, it's not really a transition, but it is a transition when you are working for somebody else and producing for somebody else, as opposed to working on your own music, for sure. But I love it. I love it.
What's like the biggest difference that you feel?
You kind of have to put yourself in a back seat a bit, understanding what they want, but then at the same time they're also with you because they want you to give them what you can offer as well. So it's understanding that fine line, but it is about the artist for me at that point. When you are producing for someone else or writing for someone else, it's trying to help them create the vision that they want. And sometimes they don't know what it is, sometimes they do, but that's, I think, the ultimate goal,
Isn't it incredible how you get to know somebody so well from what seems like a short amount of time, like a couple days or a couple weeks, but the amount of hours we spend in the studio just together,
Yes.
chatting, chopping it up, expressing, experimenting, like you get so tight with the people in the room.
Absolutely. And the more you do get to know them, the more comfortable they are with you and you are with them. It just makes, the process so much better. It is a scary place to be. A lot of artists come in and they don't know, and we're trying to figure this out, or sometimes they just went through a traumatic experience, or they just got dumped right before they walked in, which creates for the best things, because usually when they come in with a mood, it's because of something that really happened
right
5 minutes ago that, might have happened. But you do, I believe, have to take that time to let that process unfold. In the beginning, I was all about work, like, let's just get in and start working. But I learned that you really need to just sit back. Sometimes, even if you end up talking with the artist for that one session, like, that's okay. And usually you end up becoming tight. You end up becoming friends with somebody. You spend time with them, and those are the projects that I think, mean a lot. It means a lot for the other person too. You don't have that liberty all the time, but you do have to get to know the person to, I think, have the best,
outcome.
outcome.
Or product.
Yeah.
In your experience, when there's been a moment where like you or a songwriter or you and an artist like have differing or opposing views on what can or should be done, how do you typically handle something like that?
That's a tricky one. I think that's something that you keep learning how to deal with. Everybody's different. Everybody's personality is different. I think you have to start to read people a bit for like being a psychologist maybe or something. But I don't think you can take each person the same way, because some artists are a little bit more sensitive, some are not. Some want you to tell them exactly how it is. Other people, if you do, they'll shut down. So you have to find that fine line of having them comfortable where, look, as producers, we're just trying to get the best product from them. And sometimes they don't know where that is, even though they believe they're trying to do that thing. And usually when you start to get on that same page, they circle back around understanding what it is, and then they just grow from it. But it does take, sometimes that doesn't happen right away. Like, I believe you do need to allow the artist to do what they need to do. They need to get those ideas out first. They need to do what they want to do. They have to. Like, they have to express themselves. And then if they're open, then you then offer your suggestions and see if they'll take them and if they'll try them. I'm a big person about trying. I want you to do yours, because maybe you'll teach me something too. I learned so much too when from other artists. So you have to let them try, and then if they're willing to try your idea as well. It's funny because usually it becomes very mutual in the end. It's not usually a thing where I like this or you like this. When it works, and whoever's idea, it's not about that. At the end of the day, it's about making this product. That's really what it's about.
And I can appreciate like there being a little hesitation,
especially when they're demos. Things are in their head. It's stuck in your head. It's demo-itice.
Right.
We hear things a certain way, and it's very hard to hear things out of the way. And and sometimes it works just the way it is, and leave it be. It's tough when you start to explore then the possibilities that come up that can get confusing, and so your job is just to really also keep them also inspired through the process, and not allow them to get too frustrated or anything like that, because artists, like all of us, we shut down, when we're not feeling good or anything, or we just shut down. So you have to do your best to not allow that to happen. You can do so much, but know when to stop, know when to, or go or move on to something else, or try another song, or have them just sing something they want to sing, and whatever it is.
It's tough for any creative to kind of get out of that place and produce something that feels fulfilling.
Right. Absolutely. That they like, that everybody likes.
Right.
So
when you're creating, do you ever consider the listener or the audience in your creative process, or is that something that comes along later in the process?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. Again, I think it depends on the situation, or what it's for, what artist it's for, why they're there, why they're in the room, whatever circumstance it is. my honest thing would want to tell you that I don't think about it, because sometimes when you do think about that, then it does impede the process, because now you're thinking about what you think the audience might want to hear, or what you think the consumer wants to hear, or what you think the label wants to hear. And even though I do have a sense of that, I mean, that's actually something myself, maybe it's the DJ side, whatever it is, but I do have a sense of what I think people like to hear. So that's why sometimes that does influence the productions and the style with what I'm doing. But if I could have it, if I could have the perfect world, honestly, I would not want to think about that. Because I think that's when the best product comes out. But I think too, also, the more and more that you do this, you naturally do, it's a natural understanding that you start to have. So it's not like I'm thinking about what the consumer wants per se, but when you're creating what you're creating, it's naturally already happening. And that fine balance just comes in, So you're not really thinking of it as two parts.
It's really interesting that you saying this, because I was hearing someone talk the other day who DJs.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying, like, I'm surprised producers don't talk to me more about things, because, like, I got my ear to the ground. Like, I know what's being played out there, or like what the crowd is or isn't responding to. And so it's interesting how I think it could be part of, like you said, your DJ background, just kind of being like, hey, like, imagine yourself playing this on the dance floor. Like,
right.
What do you think you might feel? Because that's part of your DJ hat.
Absolutely. Well, that's what I did a lot. Like, even when I was first starting to make beats, I would just like throw in my crappy whack beats like in the middle of a set, just to like try and test them out. And it'd be incredible. Like, the things that you thought were terrible, like, they moved to, and the things you spent like 2 months on, like, they didn't care. So it's this, like, this experimentation thing that's happening. And same thing with artists. Artists come through. Again, it depends, I think, what stage they're in. Because sometimes they're like, I want it to sound like this or be like that or that BPM. But ironically, once that happens, that sounds already old, I should say. Music is moving so fast, and the quote unquote trends are moving so fast that if you sit there and you try to copy a trend, it's most likely probably not going to work. Yeah, I don't know. There's always exceptions to every rule, but yeah, just trying to copy a sound or this and that, I don't think is the best way to go about it. And also to what people say that they want, or, if you're dealing with labels and this and that, they'll say certain things, but the truth is they just want to hear something that, gets them off of their feet. Like, they really want to hear, it's like that saying, like, something different but the same, like the same but different. No one really knows what that is until you hear it. And for me to say, like, oh, this is going to be a hit or something, that doesn't really come out of my mouth, because at the end of the day, there's so many factors. I think you just have to make the best that you can, and kind of like throw paint at the wall and see what sticks, to be honest. I mean, and then you have very specific artists, a cultural thing or certain music that they do, that's different. Like, it's in them, it's in their culture. Like, this is the kind of music that they're doing, and that's that, and that's perfect. Like, that's who they are. They'll live, breathe, die by that, and that's great. You don't alter that. Like, that's who they are. But a lot of artists, they're still trying to figure themselves out, and so those are the kind of artists you try to help and see who they are, and see they learn a lot about themselves as well, so that's what's the cool process, I think, about it.
What has been one of the best and one of the worst experiences?
I need a bottle of wine for this.
A little shot of tequila.
Yes. Oh, man. Best experience, we'll start there. Man, this is gonna sound so like not what you want to hear, but I really think it's those couple of moments where you just really like found gold with an artist and not someone even known. Just being able to, like we were just talking about, like helping someone create that vision and that spark happens at the end. Like you all just kind of feel this energy. I know it's not the most exciting answer, but
it makes the most sense. Like you're saying, the best experience is the one where everyone feels fulfilled and satisfied at the end of throughout and specifically at the end of the process.
Yeah, you almost have this feeling of just, I don't know. It's just a great feeling when that happens. So there's a couple moments that I've had that really like got me to that level where I really felt good. I'm like, okay, I think I know what I'm doing. But even so, like, I love this, like I love doing this. And I've had moments like that with myself.
You're like, yes, go Poppins.
Or like I'll be in like my little like home studio and doing things that feeling that I get can't be it can't be duplicated. It's such a powerful feeling that, I think those are the moments that I, keep striving to have and hold on to. Worst moments. Look, this has been a journey. This hasn't been an easy journey. I've had the typical, like, other producers coming in and being like, you don't know what you're doing, this and that, and having to sit there and prove and have an artist or do something or just do things that maybe other producers wouldn't have to do in the moment, to just prove kind of who you are and what you're doing. So in the beginning, I was not very outspoken. Of course, if something really crossed the line, then, there's a thing of like respect that has to be there. But the little things that would happen, I just let go of. I had to internalize it for myself, but I needed to understand for myself why I was doing that. I knew my out goal. I knew why I was there. I knew whatever they said, if even in that moment I felt I couldn't do it, all it did was make me better because it made me go in and just hone in even harder and like work harder. So I'm actually kind of grateful for those moments, to be honest. But yeah, I've had, not to the bad side of things, like, you're sitting there and the hands go on your lap. And, I've had situations where I physically had to remove myself.
Right.
Because it would have not been good. And I also had to learn a lot of boundaries for myself. In Miami, a lot of people work late. In LA, I learned they don't work as late as they do out here. So if, someone I don't know, this is, people that I don't know that I meet, if they're like, let's hit the studio 11, 12, at night, for the first time, I'm like, no. Right, like if we're serious about this, like I can meet you at 3 p.m. and we can go to the studio. So I've created a lot of boundaries for myself. Unless if I don't know, like
if you don't know them yet,
no.
if you don't have like a rapport working together.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that I've walked away from many gigs. I've walked away from managers. I walked away from celebrities. I've walked away in situations where I was very uncomfortable. And there were also a couple situations that, like I said, that were not safe. Luckily, I was able to remove myself.
Especially when you don't know people in the room, you're walking in blindsided because someone can have a reputation that's great. And the reality and the experience of them is something completely different.
Absolutely.
And sometimes in the beginning, it's great. And then it gets weird later. So many different kind of unfortunate circumstances happen.
Right.
In the moments where you felt, a hand on your shoulder or like, how did you remove yourself? Yeah. Was it something, I mean, if you are comfortable sharing, was it something that you just didn't talk about and just found an excuse to leave? Or was it a thing where you were like, chill out?
Again, I came in, I was more of a, I didn't speak up. I wasn't that person in the beginning. I deal with confrontation sometimes by myself. Like, again, I walk away from the situation, I deal with it. It won't happen again, but I'm not usually the person to confront, make my point. Like, I'll figure it out for myself. So when you're in those situations, definitely in the beginning, when the hand went on or something, I would just kind of move uncomfortably and like kind of giggle it off. And learning that giggle it off thing was like not the way to go about this at all, because you're just giggling it off because it's insecurity. You're not sure really what to do in that moment, depending on the situation or how far it goes. But yes, I usually do remove myself. There have been situations where I've actually said something to the person, because I'm to the point now where I also know who I am and what I can offer in the whole thing. I don't think I would even allow that doesn't really happen at the moment right now. And that's also because of myself and my personality, things you go through, the strength that you have. And also it's like being good at what you do. It's unfortunate because as women and stuff, sometimes we have to like always prove, right? Where maybe sometimes you wouldn't have to prove as much. But I just know, like, if I'm not, for me, in my experience, if I wasn't really hitting it out of the park right away, I was kind of done in that situation. So I just learned how to like really come in and like do the best I could. And of course, there's situations and times where it doesn't work. It doesn't work, but you do what you can do. And I think I was talking to you about this before. There's a lot of things that people are trying to do, and a lot of conversations about this happening, which is great. And I think a lot of the conversations that need to be happening are more about how we act when we're actually in the room, not just like, let's get more women here and do this, which we should, but how, when we are all together in a room and how we're working, like, how can we both be in this room and interact together?
Right.
That kind of conversation. Because I think that's what's really important, because the truth is, like, there's different energies. When there's a man and there's a woman, and now you put a woman in the seat that's usually driven by a man, the energies are already different.
Yeah.
Just naturally of how life is. I'm not saying it's right. It's just
different.
It's just different.
The energy is different. That's part of That's part of it.
Right. So if we can just get to a point where when we are in rooms, like, how we can coexist and be and everyone feels safe and natural. And again, at the end of the day, we're just there to like make music, We're just there to like do the best that we can. Yeah. That's it. When you know your craft, when you're comfortable, and when you're in a room and you're prepared, and like, some days you may have good days and some days you may not have good days. That's just how it is. But there's things you can learn for yourself that works for you. And I think we all just have to find that for ourselves, whatever that may be. Just be a badass and know what you're doing. And that goes for any gender.
That's right.
And anything that we do, just be really good at what you do. And that's it.
I know you've been through some other difficult situations, on the other end of the creation, where it comes to like splits and crediting and distribution. Is there a story that you could maybe share with us that some people could learn from?
Yes, I think so. And this isn't coming off as anything like sad or sobbish, but maybe this is just a way, something that definitely I learned from. How's that? Something I learned from. There was one situation that was with a very well-known artist and well-known producers. And I was working with them closely, and just basically the production, just got taken away from me, and the song got written on top of it. So when the record came out, it was basically my beat with the song written over, and even some of the lyrics too were the same and everything. I just remember when I heard like the preview on Instagram, like the first second that I heard it, my like heart rate, shot through the roof. Of course, like for me, especially at that time, this was really hard because again, it was with a well-known artist, and for someone like me, could have really helped where I was, in what I was doing. So that was a very difficult situation for me because I remember being in my room, a little studio, and, and just hearing the record come out and all this stuff was happening. And I'm just like sitting in the dark, like listening to this record. I'm like, but I did this, but like I couldn't like tell anybody or anything. And long story short, look, there's things that could have been done. Like I did talk to my lawyer. I've talked to fellow friends, writers, producers, mentors about this situation and like what I should do. And this is maybe something that everyone will handle differently. But for myself, I had to weigh the pros and cons in the situation. I worked really hard to get to that place and the connections that I made. So I had to weigh out if I, went the way, the lawyer way, what that would actually do for me. Would that benefit me or not? And when I did that, I'm like, for me, I felt it would just hurt everything that I've worked for. And I had to take the back seat and understand, like, okay, this happened. It was hard. It was very hard for me to deal with, but it happened. And I had to learn from it, which I did.
When you like spoke to, your colleagues, had most of them had a story? Because I think most people in the industry have at least one story where they're just like, I got screwed.
Yes. So it's funny, actually, mostly all of them. And they were kind of telling me like, well, here it is. Here's your story.
Right.
Like you got,
you got got.
You got got. And it almost like welcome. Like here's your welcoming. I just had to come to terms with that and understand it. And if anything, again, like at least I was on the right path, at least there was something that I was doing that, important people, quote unquote, wanted. I had to kind of understand that and look at it from that angle and learn from it. I hope to say it won't happen again, but I'm sure a different way, and maybe I'll think about it differently or go about situations different. We all kind of know and need to, that stories like this will happen and situations like this will happen. Maybe, again, maybe a blessing in disguise. Who knows what, that may have been, but definitely a learning experience. But I think it is important for people to understand, as myself, I tried to understand with the situation that we need to, again, weigh out the pros and cons and really like what do you need and want at the end of the situation. And everybody will handle it different. I don't think there's one way to go about it at all. And maybe I won't do the way I handled it this time. Maybe I won't handle it like that another time. But, we're kind of all in the same boat and things will happen, So again, just put your head down and keep going. Like, again, just be there for the right reason. Be there because you love doing what you're doing and that's why you're doing it. And,
I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. You may not know the reason in the moment. It may be 5 years after the moment that you learn why that happened the way that it did. But I can't wait to see what else you got coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that story.
Yes, you're welcome.
I want to know a little bit more about what you've been working on most recently.
So I do a lot of many little things here and there. I can't really say names of certain artists. I call myself the alternate version specialist. Something that I kind of just termed for myself. But when I first went to LA, a lot of the people that I was trying to work with in labels and this and that, I was trying to find my niche, how I could start working with them. And, there's a lot of records and things on the shelf that needed productions for, but there was no budget left and they didn't want remixes. They needed actual productions. So I would, even through fellow friends, songwriters, other producers, they got to know me as like, here, let me send you this a cappella, see what you can do. Like, can you bring this back to life? So that's kind of what I started to do for myself. I took kind of a backwards approach, and it's like backlining for certain people, but then it gets the production to a certain place. So then when it gets into the hands of like the artist or the label, then they can take it from there. So that's just been my little creative journey. but I can't say who I've been working with. But I've worked with a lot of prominent people there, and I'm still on the journey. This is a journey, and I'm just still on that. And I'm always, trying to look for new projects, look for new artists, and also still working on projects for myself, as a DJ and in, dance music and this and that.
What is a piece of advice that you've been given along this journey that comes up, often, that like you reference back to quite often?
Wow. There's probably a lot of things, common things that you do hear a lot. I already said this once. I think, honestly, really just knowing whatever you're doing to the best that you can know, and always keep growing with that. I still have so much to learn and grow. When you're really confident and you feel good about what you're doing, that's just the best way for you to go forward, and for also others to see and feel and want to be part of what you're doing. Work hard and all of that, of course, like that's something that we all know, like, but working hard also too means just being intentional, not just staying up late and all that. It's just being intentional, working hard. I think when your mind is really focused on what you're doing, it's like the energy thing. When your mind is just really focused on something that you're doing, you feel good, and those experiences also start to come to you in a certain way. And trying not to listen to the outside noise. That's something that's a new recent thing for me the last couple of years, which has really, really helped. Again, but it's all coming back to you. Yeah. It's all coming back to, you can listen from afar, and you can take the advice for a moment, but then like package it up, put it away, and go back to doing what you need to do. And I think when you start to be aligned in that path, that's when, you start to feel those changes. And look, I'm on that discovery as well. That's something I work on all the time. You have good days and you have bad days. Like it's not all, and I've had great experiences, to what we were talking about before. I've had great experiences, not so great experiences. I've worked with, many people, men and women, with great experiences. So I think this whole thing is just a journey, and if you really, again, love what you're doing, and you're really doing it because that's why you're there. You're not really there for those outcomes. You're there because that's what you do,
Day-to-day things, right? Like every day you need to remember to be intentional with your time and your energy and like the projects that you're working on.
There's no magic formula. Even though we want one, we're always looking for one. We want that thing to happen or that break to happen. And those things come, but, but I think your mind and everything just has to be in that moment.
If you could transport for just 2 minutes back in time to that room right over there and talk to yourself, what would be maybe some advice that you'd give yourself?
Wow. To be okay with myself. To be really okay with who I was. Again, not worrying too much about, about other people, their thoughts, not having fear from myself. And again, it keeps stemming back to myself. If I could just, the knowledge that I'm still, again, learning, but putting that to that person back then with a certain attitude, but a confidence attitude, nothing more than that. Just a place where you feel good about who you are and being confident about that, and not worrying when you step out what's going to happen. I think that's what I would tell myself, for sure.
Well, Poppins, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your stories. This has been so lovely.
No, this is amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.